Hey friends, Elizabeth here from Plant-Based Bride, back again with another video, and today we're doing something a little different. I finally, after about 2 years, ran through my stack of tea-stained paper from the first time I ever tried it, so it was time to make some more. I love using tea-stained paper in my reading journal, and I have had several requests for me to make a video showing how I do it. Since I had to make a new batch anyway, I thought I would film it, turn it into a little video for those of you who have been asking, so you can see how I've been doing it. Of course, I'm not an expert. This is only the second time I have ever tea-stained paper, so if you have any tips or tricks or different techniques that I can try, leave those in the comments down below. I would love to see them, and I'm sure anyone watching this video would also be interested in any insights you may have to share. I started by preheating my oven just to make sure it'd be ready, and I set it to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. I also filled my kettle and set it to boil. While the water was heating up, I grabbed a large jug. You could use any kind of larger container, and I added in my tea bags. I used chai this time because that's what I had on hand, and I used 6 tea bags. I also grabbed a mason jar with measurements along the side, just so I could get a better idea of how much water I was using for the purposes of this video and for giving recommendations. So I filled this mason jar almost all the way to the top with boiling water, which was around 600 milliliters or 2.5 cups. Then I very carefully poured this boiling water into my jug with my tea bags and gave them a bit of a stir. You don't need this intermediate step of the mason jar if you're doing this at home. I just wanted to get a better idea of the volume of water that I was pouring in for anyone at home doing this, just so that I could give you more specific instructions. Now I'm leaving my tea bags to steep in the water for about 15 minutes. And I'm just going to press out any excess liquid from the tea bags and pull them out and just pop them into my mason jar. So now that I have my tea all brewed up, I'm going to grab a pan that's large enough for a regular A4 sheet of paper to sit along the bottom flat. So this pan is a perfect size for a piece of paper, and it's also nice and deep, which I personally prefer. The first time that I tea-stained paper, I used a regular depth baking sheet, and that put a limit on how many sheets I could actually do at once, and it also made it a lot harder for me to avoid spilling, so I did make a little bit of a mess. So I would definitely recommend a deeper pan if you have access to one. I'll link the pan that I'm using in the description box if anyone is looking for this specific pan. So I'm starting by pouring a little bit of tea at the bottom and popping a sheet of paper in. This paper is just regular printer paper from Staples, nothing special. Then I'm pouring more tea on top and just using my spoon to press the paper down into the tea. I'm doing 30 sheets of paper total, and some of the sheets I'm putting in individually, some of the sheets I'm putting in 2 or 3 at a time, and I'm doing a couple chunks of 5 sheets at a time. Now, the more sheets you put in at once, the lighter those sheets are going to be. When you put sheets in individually with tea on the top and the bottom, those sheets are able to absorb more tea, and they typically end up darker. When you put in a chunk of several sheets at once, the sheets in the middle are getting a lot less exposure to the tea, so those sheets end up lighter. So if you want a variety of darker sheets to lighter sheets, then it's good to put them in different quantities. If you are looking to try to get more of a consistent look, then I would suggest putting them in one at a time. And I'm just going to keep doing this process until I have all of my sheets in the pan. I'd probably recommend making a little bit more tea if you were also going to try to do 30 sheets. I think that the amount of tea that I brewed would probably be more appropriate for maybe 20 sheets max. Though to be fair, I don't know how many sheets you're going to be doing at once. I don't know how much tea-stained paper you're running through, but I know for me, my last batch lasted me a very long time, so I expect this batch to last me a while as well. Yes, sweetie? Hi, honey. So you can see when I put my final sheet in, I had completely run out of tea and I had to really work to get this last sheet covered. So as I said, if you were planning on doing as many sheets as I am here, 30 sheets, I would make more tea. Now I'm going to leave these sheets to just soak up the tea for another 15 minutes or so, and then I'm just going to drain out any of the excess liquid. Using my spoon to squeeze out any excess liquid. Now I'm just going to pull all the sheets out of the pan and start with just a couple to bake. I baked 5 sheets of paper at a time, so as I mentioned, the oven is set at 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is approximately 180 degrees Celsius, and I'm baking these sheets of paper for 5 minutes at a time. So I'm popping them in, setting a timer for 5 minutes, and then coming back to check on them, pulling them out, just taking a look at how dry they are, how they're doing, and if they still need more time, popping them back in the oven. I find generally after 3 intervals of 5 minutes, so 15 minutes baking time total, the sheets are pretty dry. So at this point, if you're happy with how they're looking, you could just take them out and let them air dry the last little bit. Or if, like me, you're finding some of the sheets a little lighter than you wanted, or if you just want them to have a little bit more variety, some darker spots and lighter spots, some areas that look almost like age spots, then you can add more tea to your pages and pop them back in the oven. So that's what I'm doing here. I put the tea that I'd poured back into my jug into this little spray bottle. This is actually a mister I use for my plants usually, and I just use that to spray the tea onto the sheet in a random pattern to try to get some darker areas, some little splotches and things like that. I really like the variety that you get from just randomly spraying certain portions of the page. So for my next batch, I actually decided to spray the sheets before I popped them in the oven for the first 5-minute interval. Yoda was very interested in this whole process and kept trying to jump up on the counter and be part of the action, so I thought I'd let her say hello. I ended up adding a little bit of my leftover coffee from the morning into the spritzer to try to get some even darker spots on my pages. If you find that a particular sheet of paper is just not seeming to get any darker, I'd recommend trying to pop it either on the top of your batch in the oven or put it in on its own. And I just continued to do this process until I worked through all 30 sheets of paper. And this is the result. So here's a little overview of my 30 sheets of tea stained paper. You can see some of them are quite a bit darker, some of them are lighter. All of them have a little bit of variety. Some of them have smaller, lighter splotches. Some of them have really dark, intense splotches. And I'm really excited about that. I love that each sheet has its own character, and it really sparks my creativity when I decide I want to use some tea stained paper and I pull out my stack and I go through it until I find a sheet that captures my attention. And it just feels like the character of that sheet, its uniqueness, nerve, and talent really inspire me to go in a particular direction with my spread. So hopefully this was helpful to everyone who's been requesting that I make a video on this. It's pretty straightforward. And as I said, I'm not an expert. This is only my second time ever tea staining paper. So again, if you have tips and tricks or different techniques for me to try, please leave them in the comments down below. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it and subscribe if you haven't already. I want to take a moment to thank my patrons for their support. Extra special thanks to our newest patrons, Marielle, Joanna, Stephanie, Audra, Miss Fan, Rabarella, Bryn, Chrissy, Jess, Tara, and Christy. Welcome all of you to the squad. We are so excited to have you. If you at home want to join the squad, feel free. There's a link in the card and in the description box down below. And with that, I'm going to get going. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you really soon in my next one. Bye, friends. If you're looking for something to watch next, I recommend you check out this video and this video.